You're holding your baby at the end of a long day, their weight against your chest, that particular heaviness of a tired infant, the soft animal warmth of them. And you say it, almost without thinking, because you've been saying it for weeks. I love you. You whisper it into the top of their head, or you say it while making eye contact, or you say it during a diaper change at 2 a.m. when neither of you should be awake, and then you're left with the quietest version of a question you don't quite know how to ask. Does that mean anything to them? Not just the tone of it, the actual words, the actual thing you're saying. Do they feel, in some way, what you're trying to give them? The obvious answer, the one pediatricians and relatives and parenting books will offer, is that it doesn't matter yet. That language is just sound at this stage. That meaning comes later. That what matters now is tone and warmth and physical contact. And that answer isn't wrong, exactly. It just stops before it gets to the interesting part. Because what's been discovered in the last 20 years of infant neuroscience is that the gap between not understanding words and feeling what words carry is far smaller than anyone used to think. Your baby may not know what I love you means, but something is happening when you say it. Something specific, measurable, and genuinely profound. Start with what the voice itself does. Anne Fernald at Stanford has studied caregiver speech to infants since the 1980s, and one of her central findings is that infants are not passive recipients of language. They are exquisitely tuned to the prosodic contours of speech, meaning the melody, rhythm, and pitch variation that carry emotional information independently of the words themselves. When you say, I love you to your baby, your voice does something involuntary and consistent. It rises in pitch, slows in tempo, and takes on a particular melodic shape that researchers have found is nearly universal across unrelated languages and cultures. Mothers in Japan, in the United States, in rural Cameroon, speaking to their infants, the melodic contour is recognizably similar. This isn't learned behavior. It's a biological signal, and your baby's brain is built to receive it. What the infant brain is doing with that signal is not passive processing. By around 4 to 6 weeks, long before any word comprehension is possible, the auditory cortex of infants shows differential responses to the prosodic features of caregiving speech versus non-caregiving speech. The brain responds differently to a voice that's talking to them versus a voice that's talking to someone else. Natalie Minagawa-Kawai and colleagues at Keio University documented this years ago using near-infrared spectroscopy, a non-invasive imaging method that tracks blood flow in the infant brain. And what they found was that the infant brain isn't just detecting sound when a parent speaks to it. It is specifically activating social and emotional processing regions in response to the emotional quality of the voice. The words don't carry the meaning yet. The voice does. And your voice, specifically, carries a signature your baby's nervous system has been encoding since before birth. There's substantial evidence that fetuses begin learning the acoustic profile of the primary caregiver's voice in the 3rd trimester, which is why a newborn already prefers it from the first hours of life. But it goes further than acoustic processing, because saying, I love you to your baby is rarely just speech. It's almost always accompanied by eye contact, physical closeness, touch, a particular quality of attention that is different from functional caregiving, different from the voice you use during feeding logistics or diaper changes. And in those moments, something called the mirroring response is active in both of you simultaneously. Marco Iacoboni at UCLA and others studying mirror neuron systems have shown that emotional expression in one person activates corresponding neural patterns in the person observing them. The felt sense of an emotion can be transmitted through witnessing it, not just experiencing it. When you look at your baby and say, "I love you" with an open, warm face, your baby's brain is not just registering a sound and an expression. It is, in a meaningful neurological sense, trying on what it sees. Ruth Feldman at Bar-Ilan University has spent years studying the physiological synchrony between parents and infants, and what her research shows is remarkable. When a parent and infant are in a moment of genuine emotional connection, their heart rate variability, their cortisol levels, even their neural oscillations begin to move together. Feldman calls this biological synchrony, and it is not metaphor. It is measurable co-regulation of two nervous systems occurring in real time. When you say, "I love you," and you mean it, and your baby is looking at you, the emotional state you're in begins to be shared. Not symbolically, physiologically. Your calm becomes, in some measurable way, their calm. Your warmth registers as warmth in their body too. What that means for your baby's developing brain is something researchers like Megan Gunner at the University of Minnesota and Alan Shore at UCLA have been documenting for decades. Moments of positive emotional resonance between caregiver and infant are not merely pleasant. They are neurologically constructive. The repeated experience of feeling safe, felt, and warmly regarded, what Shore calls affect synchrony, directly shapes the development of the right hemisphere, which is the part of the brain most responsible for emotional regulation, social cognition, and the capacity to feel connected to other people throughout life. Every time you look at your baby and say, "I love you" with your whole face and voice and attention, you are, quite literally, building the architecture of their emotional brain. The experience of being loved, received, and processed by a developing nervous system that cannot yet hold it in language is being held in something older and more foundational than language. Here is something worth knowing honestly, because it belongs in this conversation. Not all babies receive caregiving speech the same way, and this is worth paying attention to. Infants who later show signs of hearing differences, auditory processing variations, or early atypicalities in social attention may not respond to your voice with the gaze and stillness that most infants show. If by 3 or 4 months, your baby seems largely unresponsive to your voice, even in moments of close eye contact, or if they rarely make reciprocal eye contact during moments of emotional expression, it's worth mentioning to your pediatrician. Not because something is necessarily wrong, but because early awareness opens early doors. The neurological responsiveness that makes caregiving speech so powerful is something professionals can help support and develop. Noticing the difference between a baby who is sometimes quiet and a baby who seems consistently unreachable is one of the most useful things a parent can do. What stays with you, though, is this. The next time you say "I love you" to your baby, in that particular voice you didn't know you'd ever use, the one that comes out slower and softer and higher than your normal voice, something is happening in the space between you. Your baby cannot decode the words, but they are receiving something through your voice, your face, your heartbeat, your warmth, your nervous system settling into theirs. That transmission isn't incomplete just because it isn't verbal. In some ways, it is more complete because it bypasses everything that words require. Shared vocabulary, acquired meaning, the cognitive scaffolding that language needs to carry feeling, and it lands directly in the body, in the nervous system, in the part of the brain that will carry the emotional blueprint of being loved long before your child can ever say the word back. They don't understand it yet, but they feel it, and that turns out not to be a small thing at all. If this changes how you hear your own voice when you talk to your baby, subscribe. Every video in this series goes this deep. Next, why babies stare into your eyes like they're searching for something? It turns out they are.